Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to another episode of Coruscant Radio Underground. We're going to talk about episode 4 of Andor tonight. And with me tonight, we've got Lunar Girl and Dragon Buddy. And Marisha is here. She's just not visible. She's invisible tonight, as Hector pointed out.
Force ghosting it.
Yes, just for fun.
But we're going to talk about Andor. So I'm glad we only have one episode to talk about. It's always hard talking about more than one episode at a time.
Yeah.
Just general thoughts. How'd y'all feel about it? How did y'all feel about this one compared to the 3 we had gotten previously as well?
I felt like this was Star Wars.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, something finally happened, so that can't be bad, right?
I thought this was a good standalone episode. The first 3, we really needed all 3 to complete the arc of breaking us into this story. And this one was a good standalone episode. I liked it a lot because there were a ton of Easter eggs throughout this episode.
There were a lot of Easter eggs, and I want to go back and look through Luthen's shop a little more. I want some better look.
Go nice and slow. There was stuff that I read about, and I'm like, "You kidding me?" And went back and
right.
Oh wow, yeah, okay,
yeah. I saw glimpses of a lot of things. It was like, wait, was that? And it's gone. And it's like, well, I'm gonna have to come back and look later.
And then even in their mission briefing for the Imperials, they mentioned a lot of planets. Here and there so I think that was what kind of did it. It really gave us a connection to the bigger galaxy. So
hey Nick, welcome to the chat.
Hey
Marisha, what about you?
No, I enjoyed it. I particularly enjoyed kind of getting to see. Okay, so I'm one of those people who actually enjoyed all of the extra footage from Revenge of the Sith with all the politics and all that stuff. I actually went back and watched that stuff. So, I kind of enjoy getting to see a little more of what's going on Coruscant at this stage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Coruscant looks really good in this.
Yeah.
It really does.
It really does.
So, I mean, so far, like, I still feel like the show still got a ways to go to catch up with something like The Mandalorian. But not because this isn't good. This is an incredibly well-made show. It's the best made Star Wars show so far.
Yeah.
And I don't question that. And some of that is because I have full faith in Jon Favreau's ability to make quality. I think Jon Favreau made everything he's made so far during COVID, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, in Filoni and Favreau, we trust.
Yeah. But
right.
This one for me isn't so far. The Mandalorian has introduced so much lore back into Star Wars, both things that it's created and things that it's pulled back in from the EU. I feel like Andor will eventually get there, but it's got a real uphill climb.
It's new.
To get there. But it's good. It's really good. It's incredibly well made. I think that the pacing has been a little slow, but I think once it gets going, it's going to really go. And really, the way when you listen to Gilroy talk about this, it is technically 2 seasons, but he said we looked at it as one season, a full 24 episode season of television. You're just getting it in 2 parts.
Right.
A midweek break or a mid-season break, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that because of the way they're making it, it's okay that they're taking time to lay the groundwork. I just, so far, I don't feel like it has had some cool Easter eggs, but it just don't feel like it's built that much new stuff yet. Like, it's a cool show, but it doesn't contribute anything so really to the greater lore so far.
Right.
It's kind of playing in what we already know. But I think it's going to build that stuff. I've got full faith that it's going to build all that stuff.
Me too.
But I keep seeing a lot of kind of back and forth, the Mandalorian or, the Andor, and I think they're both great shows. I I'm not going to be willing, at least until the end of a full season of a show, to supplant the Mandalorian. And I've seen.
When you're looking at 24 episodes and we're 4 in, way too early to say it's better. It's the best we've seen so far cinematically. This is hands down the best we've seen as a series on television.
Yeah. Cinematically, I think it's just almost a straight up continuation of the look of Rogue One.
Right.
There are a couple of little hiccups with some of the ships that look a little video gamey.
Right.
Specifically, Mon Mothma's speeder.
Yeah,
it's growing on me a little bit.
Well, it looks good when it's sitting there, and it actually looks fine when it's flying out. It's something about when it came into land that just kind of goes. It didn't, you want things that are digital to feel like they have weight in the world.
Right.
For a moment there, it was
like a feather.
No. Right. But I think the show's doing really good things. I would be hesitant to give it too high of a rating until I've seen more. But it's a TV show. You have to judge it as a whole.
Right.
Absolutely. I don't think, even if I do watch the entire season of Andor, I don't think that I could weigh them against each other. I mean, The Mandalorian is geared more towards families. I think Andor is a little bit darker. It's for the more mature. Just like, Clone Wars would be an entirely different genre that they're gearing towards. And, Resistance was being thrown around in another Red 5 show. But they're geared towards different audiences. So I don't think I could compare The Mandalorian to Andor. They're
very different. And the real difference there is, if I had to tell you one of them was more Star Warsy than the other, I would tell you The Mandalorian's more Star Warsy.
Right.
More traditionally Star Warsy, because it doesn't mind playing in the fantasy elements.
Right.
First and foremost, Star Wars is a fantasy story. So it's a high fantasy story set in space.
Right.
And because of that, The Mandalorian actually still likes to play in that part of the sandbox, where Andor is really leaning far more towards a general more sci-fi
spy movie kind of.
But I don't mind that. It's just, but you're right. It makes them very different and hard to compare to each other.
Yeah. I think all of them are brilliant in their own way.
Yeah. Well, and I know I did listen to Scarif the other night, and they were talking about, this season we know we got these space battles coming up and some stuff like that do look, what we've seen of them look incredible.
Right.
But The Mandalorian's doing some big space battles this year too.
Yes.
It's interesting. Those are going to be the things that I don't think the two series are going to compare well one to the other, but it's going to be interesting to look at how they handle things like space battles and things like that side by side.
Yeah.
And The Mandalorian does give you because it's become more of the Mandoverse with Boba Fett and Ahsoka's now coming and all of this. It gives you a connection to a large portion of what you already know as Star Wars. So it comes off as more of Star Wars, where this is really like a deep cut. These are just one simple cell of rebels, looking to take down the Empire. How it connects to the whole. So until we really start making those connections, and we did, bringing Mon Mothma in and Luthen, becoming someone else in order to go through there. I think we are going to start getting those connections. A lot of name drops.
Yeah.
At Mr. Mothma's party.
You really liked Mr. Mothma.
No, I don't like Mr. Mothma. I ship him and Tim. Him and Tim are in the same boat at the moment. So.
Tim. Where's Shanti's flip flop?
Right.
Well, took a quick second to say I already said hello to Nick. Hello again. Hectorlorian is back, and Nicole has joined us in the chat. So welcome, y'all.
Cool.
Marisha, any thoughts on what we were just discussing with the kind of the comparison between the two shows?
No, I think that y'all have pretty much kind of covered the conversation. It's a very different thing. I mean, they're both Star Wars. Um, Now I do feel like, you know, you can make the comparison, kind of the initial. I think maybe you can compare kind of the way that it just sort of resonates. Um, I feel like the Mandalorian resonated very quickly with people. Just like the vibe and the look, but the Mandalorian also hit the ground running.
Yeah.
This one took a little bit more time to kind of build up, and I think, like y'all said, as the season goes, or the series kind of goes, I think we should get a much better feel for it. It's clearly a very different animal, though,
Yeah.
in that
Actually,
it didn't start out, just kind of full throttle. You're kind of building up to it.
yeah.
Right.
I actually agree a lot with what Nick has said here, and this is really a two-part comment here. And I agree. There are parts of Mando that do go dark.
Yep.
Yep.
And then let's see. And I think you pretty much nailed it there, Nick. It's not that it's more necessarily more mature content as much as it's the way that it approaches the content.
Yeah. That's a better way to put it. Definitely.
More politics, fewer blasters so far.
Yeah.
Right.
Fewer cute little cuddly, fluffy baby things.
It's true.
Mhm.
And I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Like, yes, The Mandalorian was a hit, but like the Baby Yoda phenomenon is like a creature of its own.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I want to be Baby Yoda's mom.
So you have to kind of, I guess, take that out of the equation, because that's I think that is an I can't it's a phenomenon I don't think you can replicate. I was like, unreplicatable, that doesn't seem like a word, but yeah.
It's late. We have children.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I agree with all of that. But jumping into this, let's just kind of take we've got a couple of different storylines kind of evolving here. And let's start with Cassian's and see where he's going with Luthen. And so we'll kind of talk Luthen. And of course, Luthen's going to carry us over to the other side of this here. But so far, Luthen is, and it should be expected because the actor is probably the most talented actor to take up a Star Wars role in a while.
Right.
So it shouldn't be surprising, but so far he is one of the best things about this series.
Yes.
I love the moment where he changes characters when he gets to Coruscant, and he kind of takes a minute to compose himself in this other personality, and it's just it's really cool. But what did y'all think about Cassian's arc through this episode?
I'm curious to see where it's going. He has to play another name. He took on another name for 24 hours. There's only 6 of them that are going into this, like Empire Armory type place. And how are they going to be able? I don't know. There's a lot of questions, and I just need to get the next episode.
Yeah.
One episode at a time.
Yeah. It's kind of strange. We go from what we know from Rogue One and so far in this season that Cassian's very much a loner. Everything he does is kind of on his own. And the way Luthen kind of talks to him is really touching on that inner rebel, inside him, that hatred for the Empire. So it's like kind of turning him from being this loner that does what he does on his own to make money, but also to really take a shot at the Empire because
Mm-hmm.
of his hatred for them, and then be able to work that into working with others that have the same goal, and bringing him in onto this mission as Clem,
Mm-hmm.
where he's obviously not wanted by the people he's being dropped off with,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and he's not quite sure how he feels about it. It was other than that, to hear the twin ion engines coming through was a nice surprise.
I
And
liked it.
it was a reminder, like, oh yeah, that's right. This is
Yeah.
this isn't a Mission Impossible or a Bond film. This is Star Wars. This is going on in Star Wars, and it's right. The
Yeah.
Empire's over here doing patrols. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so far his story, we're seeing him, start to work with people for
Right.
Right.
a shared goal.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they do that, because I do get some sense that he remains somewhat of a loner through most of his time with the Rebel Alliance leading up to Rogue One, but obviously he has to learn to work within the bigger picture
Right.
of the rebel groups.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be I'm curious to see how they handle that.
Yeah.
I thought the characters were interesting. I'm curious to see where we're going to go with all of these different characters we've introduced. I mean, I would say that odds are that we're going to lose at least one during the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I would say the odds are that someone's going to be a traitor.
Mm-hmm.
And these are me just pulling out tropes from this type of film, but I think they're intentionally leaning into those tropes. So I think that those are things we're going to see, and I don't know. I know who I think will be the one that dies, if only one dies, and it's going to be the young, kind of more innocent
Right.
kid of the group.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know who to expect to be the traitor among the group.
Right.
I mean, the Imperial officer is the obvious low-hanging fruit on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That question, but that seems like they'll a little obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that one's too obvious. I think it'll be somebody else. But it's what did y'all think about the characters, this group of people that he's now with?
I don't think they're going after payroll. I think that's. I mean, I could be wrong, but I have a feeling it might be bigger than just going after the Empire's payroll on some far away but not too far away planet. I think there's.
You think that's just a cover story?
I really think that's something. It's not quite what the mission is. Only because the secrecy leading up to it, it seemed kind of off. That Luthen was like, this is what we're doing, and just telling him, even though these people have been, basically pulling us off for I think it's 6 months or something like that, where they've been, embedded, waiting on this moment. So that's where I'm kind of thinking that's going. I was not taken out of the world by them carrying around a form of AK-47. Slug throwers were a thing. The Mandalorians used them. So, seeing a projectile type weapon, it didn't bother me that much at all.
No, I mean, we've definitely seen several different types of projectile weapons.
Look at all the Star Wars weapons. They're real weapons that were modified.
Well, I mean, they've even used quite a few of the solid projectile weapons in the video games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not that they're not a thing. And as far as the look of the gun, like, that's exactly the way George Lucas put guns in Star Wars. Like, all of the guns in the original trilogy were just, slightly modified, and I mean slightly modified versions of real world, particularly World War II era weapons.
Right.
To the extent now where some of those weapons, if you're a collector, you can't actually find some of those because so many of them have been turned to prop guns by either Lucasfilm themselves or by people who, like 501st members.
Right.
Right.
Like they some of those Brownings, I mean, they don't exist anymore in their original form. They've all been modified to look like Star Wars weapons.
Right.
So I don't mind that at all, and that's one of the few things I've seen people complain about this show, and that one I don't get. The pacing, it's like it's not bothering me yet. Like I need something to happen eventually.
Right.
But so far, I'm still loving just what we're being presented. But I do see where people are coming from.
Oh, absolutely.
I get it, but I need everything to be explained to me first. Like, where are we? Why are we here? How did we get here? You know, once I have those questions answered, then we can go into what is the plot, you know, like, what are we doing, you know? And we're starting to get that now. I think there was a lot more action in this episode than there was the past couple of episodes.
There was
name drops, and we're on a couple of different planets now, and you know, we're going places now.
Right. I guess if I had one real nitpick for the episode, it would be that Cassian is not the most interesting character in the show.
Yes.
Right. I think that's I think that hit us like coming into the show was, do we really want to know about Cassian? Do we care about Cassian? And I don't think it's so much Cassian as it is everything that he's connected to.
Yes. I think Cassian is our window to how the Rebel Alliance came to be. Like that's always what I expected this show to be. And I think so far that's what they're giving us. Now I do need some big moments from Cassian before this is over with, and I think we're going to get them.
Right.
And I think once we get into this heist, it's just going to be a sprint to the end. I think it's just going to be one thing after another until we get to the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Marisha, do you have any thoughts on the group that Cassian is currently with? Marisha? All right. I must have lost Marisha again.
Oh, no.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I have to make sure my screen doesn't sleep because I can still hear y'all fine, but apparently you couldn't hear me.
Correct.
That's funny. So the group is fine. Like they're not just like horribly interesting just on the face of it, but I don't think they really have to be. You know, it wasn't like, okay, now I did get a kick out of the guy who built the diorama. Of course, it's not to scale.
Right. Right.
That I got a pretty, because like I'm looking at that, I was like, oh man, you know that, you know, the props and the set guys who built that were just having the greatest time. And then one of them says, well, it's actually not to scale. And I was like, yep, they totally lifted that off of a conversation when they were building it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were talking about that while we were watching it, about how much the props guys must have had fun building that. And then basically the younger guy, the guy that built it, like they get ready to move a piece and he has to run in and grab it to protect that piece. And it's like, yeah, that's the way the guys that build that kind of stuff are. Like, don't touch it. I'll do it.
I get it. I got it.
No, like the last project I worked on, there was like a huge fight on set, and like the union got called. It was a whole thing because somebody touched a not their thing.
That's not good.
Yeah. It's like, that is my thing. Don't touch my thing. And it was a whole thing. So yeah, I got a real big kick out of that whole like thing.
That's
right
funny.
Do y'all have any other thoughts on what went on? I mean, we just didn't see a lot of Cassian in this episode. Do y'all have any other thoughts on this or their plan, or any thoughts on, is it, somebody mentioned that you don't think it's actually the payroll. Do you have any thoughts on what it might be?
I'm going to say one thing that kind of stuck with me with this episode is Luthen. He's, very mysterious. We obviously only scratched the surface of what he what he is, who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Giving Cassian a kyber crystal, really big. It says a lot for his character. That, you know, he's committed to this cause. You know, he remembers, you know, the Jedi. So that on top of when Cassian asked Vel about Luthen, and he says, well, he's something we'll never talk about. I don't, it's saying he's something that we never talk about is intriguing, because is it, we've seen in the video game Jedi Fallen Order, a Jedi that turned their back on the Force and stopped feeling the Force in that game. And is it possible that maybe Luthen is something of the same sort?
It'd be interesting. So, the other side of that would be that in Rogue One, you know, this is the real difference between this and The Mandalorian, is that The Mandalorian is being made by hardcore Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Right.
This is being made by someone who's probably more of a Rogue One fan.
Right.
Than an overall Star Wars fan. Tony Gilroy, Gilroy said himself, like, he's just not that well versed in Star Wars. So he's approaching this from his work on this singular project. In Rogue One, we kind of first time we ever really got introduced to Force worshipers who were not Jedi.
Right.
And so I kind of wonder if we're doing something more along those lines.
Right.
He said that I know, like, DB, you just like totally blew my mind there, because we didn't really talk about it with each other after we watched it. He said that it came from his friend and he wants it back, a friend that was very special to him. So I've been trying to figure out which former Jedi had a blue kyber crystal, which could be a lot of them.
It's most of them.
Yeah. I'm about to say something a little controversial, but I wanted to know what you guys think. Everybody keeps comparing this to The Mandalorian, but what if we compared, I hope Ro's not watching, this to the Book of Boba Fett? And in episodes 1, 2, and 3, we were kind of setting everything up. We were learning the backstory through flashbacks with the Bacta tank. Episodes 1, 2, and 3, we were setting everything up with Andor. We were getting flashbacks, not through Bacta tanks. Episode 4, we started introducing new characters. Episode 4 of Andor, we're introducing new characters. Does it seem, it could be just me, but does it seem like they're following a similar formula for Andor?
I mean, maybe by coincidence, I think. It feels like they were written by two completely different, like, ideals of Star Wars, for being close to the same time frame. It seems like they're definitely two different ideas of what the Force is and what Star Wars is.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I would draw a lot of parallels between the two, other than the fact that we've, you know, just kind of the general structure of, with these types of shows, we seem to be using a movie format to tell, you know, 8 episodes of story. And I think that's a fair comparison. I think that's kind of just
like the format.
TV.
I think it is. I think the format kind of observation is would probably make some people mad, but I mean, you're not wrong. It is a very similar kind of, like, okay, is something going to happen? Which is the exact same thing people said for the first couple episodes of Boba Fett.
Right. I mean, I still love it, and I like the other one too. I was just thinking, like, for a general skeleton outline, like a basic formula, it just seems like they both have the same formula.
Yeah, I think you could say that's true to a certain extent, where they're
from a certain point of view.
And from a certain point of view, and I do think that that's largely just kind of where streaming television currently is and how they format their stories.
Right.
Because I think you see that across the board with I think you could look at the Marvel side of the fence and see them doing similar things as far as the outline for their seasons. I think this is the 8-episode season format right now.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you. I
Now,
just want to bounce that off you guys.
Yeah. As far as Luthen, everybody got the idea that the rest of this crew that's going on this mission doesn't know him, right? It's just the one person.
Right.
Okay.
Just her.
So yeah, it's curious. It's interesting how they're setting up these cells, because he clearly has this one contact that's handling everything, and he's just the money and resource guy.
Right. But
And
he looks like he's got a lot of money.
As well as this crew seeming to be very fragile, and for her to be like, well, we're going to lie about this, and this is what you're going to say, and it seems like she feels that this group is already splintered, or at least starting to splinter, and that one little thing might make them, crash and burn.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of think that this. Go ahead, Marisha.
I said, which is worrisome for something that requires a team.
Right.
Yeah. Which is why I think this may go poorly. It's possible that only a few of them make it out.
Right.
All right, so let's switch over and talk about let's kind of talk about Luthen, what we saw from him in this episode, specifically once he drops Cassian off and leaves, and use that to kind of transition to talk about Mon Mothma.
Yeah.
So what are y'all feeling about Luthen? Do we think that he's someone else and that maybe we don't even have his real name yet?
Yeah.
He's like a chameleon. He just seems like he's a chameleon.
Yeah.
I mean, to have his little special thing come down, and he started putting the rings on and the wig, and practicing in the mirror on how he was going to act when he got to the museum. It was one of those, oh wow, like he is much more than just the guy with the money behind all of these these little things that he's got going on. And then to be working in a high-end museum / antiquities, serving the rich was it was very strange, very intriguing that he's down in the dirt talking to a woman with a poncho, and the next moment he's entertaining a senator who's got obviously a driver that is most likely a spy of some sort. And then, like I said, I had to slow it down and go back through it a couple of times to see everything that's in his artifact shop was like every little thing you could see. You could pull so much from that, between Mandalorian armor that you can see to, if you slow it down, it looks like there could be some tablets in there that would link to the world between worlds. Possibly a cube and a pyramid there for Jedi and Sith holocrons or waypoint. So there's a lot of things in there to be able to pick out. And Starkiller, to see Starkiller's alternate armor that was a cool throw. That was a cool nod to that.
Yeah, no, Starkiller is one of those that I don't know if they'll ever actually do that character or not, but giving Sam Witwer a chance, because Sam Witwer is a really good actor. And, at this point, I would love to see him get to play. Even if they don't do Starkiller, they should just really give him a live action role at this point. Right. He's actually, if they were to ever go back and do Revan, he would actually be my top choice to play Revan.
Yeah, I'd be there. Well, because the similarities between Starkiller and Revan are, right there.
Right.
So, definitely.
I think Whitwer's one of those guys that can pull off both sides. He can play the dark or the light side character really well, I think.
So I feel like, my kind of main thought with Luthen is that it's like once you get there and you're like, it's like antiquities. It's like, of course it's antiquities. Of course he's an import export. Because what is a more stereotypical occupation for a gun runner than somebody who deals in potentially black market antiquities?
Right.
So, I mean, like, as far as sticking with the trope, I think that that's a definite, like, another clue that they're definitely going spy movie.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to. What do y'all think about Nick's question here? Sorry to
That's
keep
a
putting banners
great
in front of your face here,
question.
I wonder if they thought that Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi was a big enough draw that they didn't have to pull out all the stops.
And they did bring back Hayden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they relied on the characters and not so much the production. Where I think they knew with Andor being, I mean, obviously a character that will have plot armor through this because he dies elsewhere, that they would really need to build up the world that he is a part of more than just his character.
It's just a shame now.
So as far as the budget comparison to Kenobi, so now that I've had you answer the question, Kenobi had a budget of 20 to 25 million per episode. This has a budget of 15 to 25 million per episode.
Wow.
About the same.
Possibly about the same, maybe slightly less.
Okay, but what is the difference for what you had to pay Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor to what you have to pay Stellan Skarsgård and shoot, I just lost his.
I would think Stellan Skarsgård probably pulls down a pretty big paycheck.
Right. But I'm just wondering, like, comparison, but their lead, like, what is his name? I lost it.
Diego Luna.
Yes, Diego Luna. He is not got. I can't imagine he commands the kind of salary that Ewan McGregor does.
Yeah, but do you think Hayden Christensen commands that kind of salary?
Oh, maybe not.
I think he did for that one episode. He did anyway.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I don't know how much they actually had to pay Hayden Christensen because I don't know how much he was actually in it.
Right. Did they offer him more than it was to make sure he'd come back, or was it more
Either way, I would think that the slightly higher budget for Kenobi probably accounts for that. But but my point is overall, Kenobi has a higher per episode, a higher average cost. So I think the problem is not just budgetary.
Yeah, it's where it's going.
That makes sense.
Kenobi felt bigger than Book of Boba, but neither of those felt even close to how it feels like we're part of a galaxy in Andor. The way they've bounced things off, the way they spoke about other planets, and even when what's her name, Miro, was talking about seeing patterns to these little attacks and such. It made it seem like this is a galaxy. These are tons of planets that are going on that they're all part of. Where Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi really focused. Well, we were on Tatooine for most of it. Going back to that original starting point.
It's interesting. I would love to see where the budgets went.
It's true. Had de-aging. How much did the de-aging cost?
But at the same time, like, they built massive practical sets for Andor, so that's expensive too. So it's Book of Boba Fett had about a 15 million per episode budget, so definitely slightly lower average episode cost, and it showed.
Right.
And I think that it not only did it show, but I don't think it was just the budget there either. I think direction. And I think the showrunner had a lot to do with the way Book of Boba Fett turned out.
Right.
and Kenobi, I think there are things when you look at the money they spent. There are things that both of those shows did well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There are things in Book of Boba Fett that look amazing.
Yeah.
It's just Book of Boba Fett had other problems other than look. In fact, its biggest problem is that it didn't, look wise, was that it just didn't look dirty enough.
Right.
Right.
It just all looked too clean, and that's the CGI.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And actually Nick brings up a really important point about budgets during COVID.
Yeah.
Making movies during COVID was, and still is to some extent, way more expensive, like unreasonably expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Just instituting COVID protocols on movies has proven to be very, very expensive.
Right.
So
Right.
that is actually probably where a fairly disappointing amount of the money went on Boba Fett and on Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Mm-hmm.
was, to all the different kind of COVID rules that they had in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and having to pay for multiple shoots and full production crews and everything to come out on more. What they might be able to do in a day might take a week.
Right, things take longer. You have to, I mean, just testing people at some of those shows I've worked with, tested people every day.
Mm-hmm.
You have to test the entire cat, and you have big background days. You have to test those people every time they're out there. All of that stuff starts to,
It
affect the
adds
bottom
up.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just for comparison, it looks like most of the Marvel stuff's costing about 10 to 15 million per episode.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
There's a lot of practical in their series.
Yeah, I mean the Marvel stuff are way more practical. This show's
Yeah.
more practical. This show's a lot more practical.
This one is in a good way.
Yeah.
We get the CGI for, you have a TIE fighter come flying through the valley, but you have the costuming, you have
Mm-hmm.
you're not talking to green screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So let's pick up. Did anybody have any more thoughts on Luthen's character and the moment we have with him and Mon Mothma, or
The fact
who
that he
else
was
he might mean? He's obviously a wealthy, connected individual.
Mm-hmm.
right. I put him stamping the fact that she needs to get up and she needs to do something and this needs to happen. Where there's a real urgency to him telling Mon Mothma that she has to hold up her end of the bargain per se.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that pressure coming from him, because up until that point he seemed cool, collected, and everything had already been planned out. When he came to pick up Cassian, he had his explosives on the doors. He had, it seemed like everything was planned out a little better.
Yeah.
Where his conversation with Mon Mothma was urgent. Like, this is something that he has no control over, and it needs to happen.
Right.
I think that's the first time we've seen him not in control of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he even said that, that never carrying anything you can't control. So he has that character of, I've got my hands on everything. No, you can't drive. Kind of attitude.
I still want to know how he knows everything. He knows everything about Cassian. And, more came out in the ship as they were talking.
Yeah.
So he is probably the character that I am most excited about at this point in the show.
Yeah, I think there's certainly the most kind of mystery and intrigue around him right now. And I do think he knows so much. I think Bix has already. I think Bix is working for him, just like this character that picked Cassian up is working for him on this other planet. So I think Bix has already told him everything there is to know about Cassian.
That makes a lot of sense, and I never thought of that.
What Bix does, I mean, they're paying off Imperial officers to leave expensive things on ships, so she's stealing in information, in that kind of sense, as well as material goods. So I would imagine he has contacts like Bix, across the galaxy, to where he's being able to get products and objects, but he's also getting information from all of these people about, the ins and outs.
I mean, like I said, we could see a lot of people show up here, and it could be that he is the one that brings Ahsoka into the,
right.
Oh
Rebels.
gosh, I hope so.
I think there's a good chance that we're going to get Ahsoka name dropped one way or the other.
I think so too.
Now,
Fulcrum.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not we see her, this director, like I said, he's a little less focused on Star Wars big picture and more focused on this individual project.
Right.
He may not be as interested in bringing in characters to connect to the other shows. And so at that point, it's just a matter of what the studio tells him, tells him he has to do. And I get the impression he's not a guy that you get to tell exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Lots
of name dropping, though. Lots of name dropping.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of name drops. Who do you think the character that he mentioned, or that Mon Mothma mentions to him that she wants to bring into the circle is?
I don't know.
We heard the name drop of Saw Gerrera, but that wasn't by Mon Mothma.
No, well, Mon Mothma doesn't mention a name. She just says she's got somebody she wants to bring in. I know a lot of people are thinking that's
Bail,
but
yeah,
Bail really should have been involved from the
he's
very, very beginning, unless these are separate kind of cells of Rebels, and she's wanting to start merging them.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Is it Leia?
Well, Leia was working for Bail, so.
I mean, yeah, but she does also do a bit of her own kind of.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, I really like where we are without, we can name drop, but we don't necessarily need to show legacy characters. We're at a point in Star Wars where if we're going to keep bringing a legacy character into every show, we're using them more as a crutch instead of a.
Yeah, I agree. If they're going to bring somebody in, I want it to make sense.
Right. I would rather see Bail Organa than Leia.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it makes more sense. They're both senators. They're both running, rebellions.
And having Leia also means casting another Leia.
Right.
Because the girl that's playing young Leia is too young. So I don't, for this time period. So I don't even know. I mean, I don't know if they even want to risk that again.
Right.
No.
Plus, the conversation in Rogue One that Mon Mothma and Bail have about Leia leads me to believe that Leia hasn't necessarily been involved in that capacity yet, that Mon Mothma is even necessarily aware that she's active.
Yeah.
Because, he's like, do you have somebody who says I would trust her with my life? And, it seems like he's talking about someone that Mon Mothma is not even sure who he's talking about yet. So.
Yeah. And we do see her in Rebels, though.
We do.
Well, I'm not saying she's not out there doing things. I'm just saying maybe, and that's why I'm kind of leaning towards maybe these groups we know that's part of what it was we had lots of rebel cells, and it was kind of a matter of bringing them all together to really fight the Empire. And that's what I think we're seeing here. So it could be Bail. It could be that Bail's over there here running his totally separate thing, and that Mon Mothma is going to be the ones that starts pulling all the pieces together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess we'll see at the dinner party.
Yeah. So what do y'all think about the dinner party? Just about Mon Mothma in general? Because I love the character. I can't wait to see what they do with her. The actress is doing a phenomenal job.
Yes.
She's one. I'm so glad that when this worked out for her to come back and do that, because when everybody was so disappointed when we saw those deleted scenes from I guess from Revenge of the Sith, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And realized they had cast a Mon Mothma and didn't get to use her. And it's really cool that all this time later, she actually got to come back and play the character.
Because she was
Absolutely.
perfect.
No, yeah, for sure. She looks so much like the original actress.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where this goes. Especially since, Hubby Poo invited these people that really shouldn't be there. It's like, you're a jerk. Why did you do that?
Especially Masamita. He's a big name drop to throw out there. You're bringing over. He was known to have powers of being able to see the future / very perceptive at the very least.
Wasn't he like
could also sort of
No.
yeah, you could sort of project thoughts on people
and read thoughts. To invite him to a dinner would make me nervous if I'm doing everything in secret.
I'm not that well versed in the comics, but I do believe that he's the one that influenced Jar Jar to move for a vote of no confidence,
right?
Or not, or to call for the vote,
right?
So I think that that's a big one. It's going to be interesting. I hope they show us the dinner party.
Yeah,
I
do
see
too.
These characters come in. I think her character's fantastic. What do y'all think about Mr. Mothma?
Mr. Mothma.
He's so lame.
He's living high society. He seems like an imperial bootlicker. Or at least that's how he's coming off right now.
He's just riding his wifey's coattails.
It seems like he's the the first husband, the first man to Mon Mothma. So
yeah,
it does seem like he's rubbing elbows with the Imperials to keep his status at the very least, or their status, because this is right before the Senate's going to be dissolved very soon. So it's not too far away. So that's where I think Mr. Mothma is.
I don't like him, and I don't know how this strong, independent senator of a woman went with him. He's just so... I don't like him. There's no better way to put it than just bluntly, I don't like him.
Yeah, there's definitely trouble in paradise over there.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious, like, is he just like, because he probably knows she's into some stuff. So is he like, is this him trying to sort of play nice enough that that people don't suspect what she's up to?
Right.
Is this or is this just him totally like, I'm looking to have fun, I'm tired of all your boring people? I mean, I could see that. Like, can you imagine spending all, it's like spending all your time with people who are really worried about whatever, maybe even important issues.
Yeah.
But it's like, like, I can't listen to the plight of the the plight of the dolphins anymore. Like, I can't listen anymore about wars in on the other side of the world. Like, he's tired of listening to all the terrible things going on. He just wants to have fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's I don't see that going good places. And yeah, you're right. You're right, Nick. The inevitable dialogue about him is going to be old by the time it's over.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, my impression of him is that he doesn't really care about people, that he's mostly just concerned with living his high society life.
Yeah.
And is really not concerned for what the Empire's doing to people. That he's just enjoying this wealthy life that he has on Coruscant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do seem pretty mismatched.
Right?
Yeah.
You wonder if they just got married, like a long time ago before either one of them were into their current spheres.
Right.
Or
And
is it a sham? Is it just for show?
Yeah.
That's true. And she even says to him, she's fighting for people that are starving and dying, and he's putting out these lavish parties and inviting all the top people in the empire. It kind of goes against what she's fighting for, and he's inviting people that openly oppose her on the Senate floor, and he kind of makes light of that when she brings it up. Like he's the one that's fighting this. Well, maybe he can change his mind. It's and don't sit me next to him.
Yeah.
So it's we'll see where that goes. It's definitely got some layers there.
Yeah. He's definitely got some nerve though.
Yeah. You're going to sit on the boring end of the table.
Man, she has some patience, because if that situation happened between me and DB, things would not have gone that smoothly.
So the only character we really haven't touched on yet that gets a little bit of screen time in this episode is Karn. What do we think is going to become of him?
Well, I loved how he went to Mommy's house and then Mommy smacked him right across the face. It was yes, that was awesome.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious. If he's from Coruscant, why was he? Assuming that was on Coruscant, did they confirm he's on Coruscant there?
I don't think.
I don't think it was
the others. Okay, because the other city is a pretty big city too. It's not a planet-sized city, but
right.
Either way, I don't really know what I expect from him at this point.
I want to say I can't remember her name. The chickie with the blonde hair in the bun who kept told, she tried to say in the meeting that there are little sex, little cells popping up here and there with the same similar activity, and her boss kind of said, yeah, and your work's late. So I want to say that chickie is going to somehow come in contact with Karn, and they're going to start picking up on Andor. So somehow they're going to team up together. I don't know how yet, though. It just seems like that.
Yeah, that's some of the dialogue.
Boring personality team up.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't really care anything. The thing I don't like about her character is that she's the only one in the room that's smart enough to know what's going on, right?
Right.
And the actress basically said that's what the character was in a conversation. I was like, oh, that's just the actress talking. I was like, no, that's really kind of what they went with. The only problem is at this same point in time, you do have the ISB has some really big figures out there that like Callus, who are well aware of what is going on with these rebel cells. He's out there fighting them on the front lines. You also have people like Thrawn out there that know what's going on. So to act like the Empire is unaware, that the Imperial Security Bureau is unaware of these rebel cells beginning to pop up, didn't really work for me. And it may just be that that's not her job, and they want her to do her job and let the people whose job it is to find these cells do it.
Right. That's how bureaucracy work.
It is. It may be that they're saying you're digging into things that aren't your business.
Right.
That makes sense.
I could see him as his character going either way. This is true.
It's true.
We could, we could see him, put his nose to the grindstone and continue to try to. I always thought he was trying to show off more for the Empire than he was for the corporate security that he
Right.
worked for. But is this something that, might turn him to the rebels because of what happened? So it could go either way. Either way, I'm still interested in his character, especially to see, is it the mother slapping him because he ruined a good job, and is coming home with his tail between his legs, or is it something bigger?
Right.
So yeah,
I see him honestly as being a potential double agent.
yeah,
Because I see him as the sort who might get recruited by the rebels because now the Empire has taken it, because he was very proud of his corporate gig, right? And corporate pride and our co-work, all of these things. So the Empire comes in and takes it over. But I also don't see him being above being being recruited by the Empire as well.
Right.
Because he does like the order and the, predictability of all of that. So
Right.
What else have I missed anything that we need to cover? Anything else with the Imperial Security Bureau, or anything else that stands out that I have failed to mention?
I think you see when the two officers kind of battling it out on whose jurisdiction and who's in charge. You get that, not from what's her name? Goodness, I can't think of her name. Look it up real quick. Miro. You get from her that she's trying to do the best she can for the Empire, where her cohort that's battling her comes off as more of a, this is just how we do it. We're set in our ways, and it's that outside of the box thinking that the Empire needed to succeed. And meanwhile, even her superior is more along the lines of, we're comfortable where we're at, and this is how we do it, and leaving it that. So you get that where Cassian is telling us that they're fat and happy. They have things their way, and you going above and beyond and ruffling everyone's feathers isn't the way to go about any of this.
Right.
So we're going to see that kind of come crashing down, I think, for the Empire when, there is more than just a random attack here or there. They are coordinated.
Yeah, I do fully expect by the end of this, really either the season or the end of the 2 seasons, for the rebels to be the full-blown rebel alliance that we meet, in Rogue One. Because we're also going to cover, this is supposed to lead, the second season is going to lead right into Rogue One.
Right.
Which means we're going to cover 5 years during the course of this show.
We're going to get K2SO.
Yay!
But waiting on that. And I will say there's a lot of people that are out there. I saw for Andor complaining that, Rebels did all of this better. And while I agree, I loved Rebels. The storylines in an animated show were very deep, and very enjoyable. But there was also things like Rebels happening across the galaxy by different groups.
Right.
So this, just because Rebels was good and did, whatever, had Saw, it doesn't mean that they're not connected here as well. And I'm just as interested to see all of the sides that they're connected to.
Well, I'm just really unwilling to draw a lot of comparisons without a lot more material. It's just
apples and bowling balls. You got a live action show and you've got a cartoon. So there's no limits when you animate something.
Well, and people complained like crazy when Rebels first came out.
Oh yeah,
because it wasn't Clone Wars.
Another cartoon, and then even Clone Wars, for the most part, really didn't catch on with a lot of people until it was about over or already over.
Yeah, for sure.
Then there was a huge push towards it because it became more lore. Like the people that were watching it from the beginning were saying that there's tons of Star Wars stuff in here. It's a kid show. It's a kid show. It's a kid show. and it became so good to where Rebels was a success. And people jumped on that wagon, but nobody wanted to look at it because it was animated. And now it's being held at such high regard that, you do have to give everything else a chance.
All right. Any other final thoughts on either this episode or what you expect moving into the next episode, into episode 5? Marisha?
No, I'm excited to see, where it's going to go. I'm excited to actually see, this see the spy stuff actually start to happen. So far we've mostly just seen him kind of sulking around being, moody and unhappy. So I'm excited to actually see him get into spy mode here.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't actually seen Cassian really in action yet, other than trying to escape at the end of episode 3.
Right.
So yeah, that'll be good to see that. Anybody else?
Marisha kind of said what I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see some Stormtrooper armor. To get inside the Imperial base that they're going into, to see how they slip in, to see what they're doing. I'm really excited to see that portion of it. And like I said, we've gone this far without really seeing this episode. We got a lot of name drops, we got a lot of planet drops, we got a lot of Easter eggs that you can see in the background while the officers are talking. You see the patrol going on outside, wearing close to the helmets, but not stormtroopers. I want to see a nice regiment of stormtrooper armor inside that base, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. And I'm just ready to see some action. I think we're getting it next episode. I think that we've been talking Rings of Power, and we were kind of in the same boat. It was like there's a lot of groundwork being laid here, but let's see some action, and we got it this week.
Right.
And I think this coming week, I think we're going to get that on Andor. I think a lot is going to go down in this coming up episode.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to. I think you're 5 episodes in. I think it's time to really hook people into
ramp
the show.
it up.
Yes.
Definitely.
All right. Was that it? Anybody have any last thoughts?
I really don't.
No.
All right.
Great time to be a nerd.
It really is. It really is. And there's so much more coming.
Yes. So much.
I'm enjoying it. Enjoying just give me one episode at a time.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Definitely more coming. So we'll see. And we'll be back to talk about it when it happens. So thank you to everybody in the chat that joined us tonight. It's
y'all were great.
Lorian, Nicole, Nick,
Megan
was in here.
Megan
And Nicole was in here, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thanks y'all for hopping in the chat. It's always nice to have people in the chat while we're doing this. So before we move on for the night, that fly is going to drive me nuts. I'm sure because it keeps going right in front of my camera. So Lunar Girl, tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on.
You can find me at the Sidebar Cantina socials on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me, tomorrow I will be on Salacious Rum at 3 p.m. Eastern doing the Monkey Lizard hangout stream with DB down there.
Okay.
Oh, and Friday, Stranger Things Has Happened is back. So Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, my co-host Don Della Snooch and I will be covering episode 1 of season 2 of Stranger Things. So come join us 7 p.m. Friday.
Awesome. DB, what you got going
on? Once again, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Monkey Lizard Hangout. 2 nerds and a Kowakian Monkey Lizard. Did he bite off more than he can chew? We'll find out. Other than that, you can catch me and my two bucket bros, Don and Brady, on Wednesdays, 7:05 YouTube. You can go to bio.link/ATSW The Escape Pod. It'll give you a link to everything we have: Patreon, YouTube, TikTok. We've got all the socials. We try to have shenanigans evenly across them all. And yeah.
Awesome. Marisha, what about you?
You can find me on Instagram at princesses_and_padawans, and occasionally on Twitter at ppadawans.
Awesome. You can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. You can find the Science Fictionary podcast and Coruscant Radio Underground anywhere that you would want to listen to podcasts. You can also go over to thesciencefictionary.com. You can find both of our podcasts as well as YouTube links over there. You can also go there to the homepage at thesciencefictionary.com and find the links for the Parsec Fan Awards. You're running out of time. You got to get those nominations in because we've got to close those down so we can plan a show. So we need all the nominations. So please get those in. And when you go over there, the list of categories and everything is right there on the page. And we came up with an easy, I know some of you submitted to the email, but we also have just a survey filler that you can go over there and you don't have to put in any information. You can just click on it, fill out the survey, and get your nominations in. Yeah. And Megan, if you're still in the chat, Megan has been helping with the Parsec social media. So thank you again for helping with that stuff. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, and last but not least, you can find our podcast as well as all of the rest of the Red 5 podcast family at Red 5 Network on Twitter. All right, guys. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.